Okay.
All right, we are live with Zers. That is bass, capital FZ, lowercase z. You can find him on Twitter and YouTube under that name. If you have any business inquiries, you can find him on Gmail. Just search his YouTube About page. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well today. Today was a good day. I didn't do anything. I just uploaded a new video. It's just, today was a good day. It was okay.
Well, I mean, you can't ask for much more than, not getting
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I binged watch a new show. That's always fun. So,
What show
yeah,
is that?
today's a good day. It was a Ruby. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
No, it's a web show by Rooster Teeth. So maybe you
Oh.
haven't, but it's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get right into this. So you've described yourself as an individualist. Can you walk me through what exactly individualism is?
Well, from what I see, at least what I mean when I say individualist or when I should be an individualist, I really means that you should value, not even so much value, but I guess that could be part of it, but you base the way you treat someone based on how they are as an individual, how they treat you, what they say to you, what they perform, how they show you what they can do. It's all based on that person. And the reason why I feel the way that we should base it on an individual is because they can only represent themselves. Being a black person, I can't speak for every single black person's experience because I'm not every single black person. It logically is inconsistent just in terms of reality. It just doesn't make any sense to believe that you speak for every single person or even a gigantic group of people unless they say that you're their representative. So no one has said that I'm their representative, and most of the people I find on YouTube or articles, they're not representatives of anyone. No one's appointed them to anything. So they can only speak from the way they feel. And I think that's how you should treat people. If they show you kindness, you should treat them based on that because they were kind. You don't go around thinking, every single Japanese person is the same exact way because you're going to be disappointed when you find a rude Japanese person. So if you meet a kind Japanese person, he was kind, he was nice, so you're going to treat him well, and that doesn't mean that, you treat everyone badly. I don't see why you would then go to the extreme that, you treat people wrongly. But I think being an individualist is valuing an individual for what they've shown you or treating the person badly for what they showed you. If someone's treated you badly,
I think
one person and to everyone else. So that's what I mean when I say I'm an individualist. I treat people based on their personal abilities or what they personally have treated me.
So on the other end of individualism is collectivism. Now, I think you've explained it thoroughly there that, treating people as monoliths for people that just simply look like them or came from the same place as them is a bad idea. But do you think there are any benefits to collectivism?
The only benefit I could really see from collectivism would have to be a forced scenario, and that is someone treated you well, so you treat the entire group well as very kindly too. I guess again, you find one Mexican and he treats you nicely, then you just treat the whole nicely because of that one person. But again, that has to be forced because not every human being is a nice person. So it just collectivism just doesn't really make any sort of sense because we're not a monolith. We're not all a hive mind. We are all going to be different and say different things and do different things. So from the one hand, the only way I could see collectivism being a good thing is in a forced scenario where, you meet someone that was nice, you treat someone, that was really good at their job. So you think everyone in that group is good at their job. But, in terms of reality, that's just not how the world works,
Yeah, and I remember you touching down on race realism, the whole IQ averages across races. Now, can you explain in depth what race realism is and who's using it?
I don't think I can explain it in depth to completely understand what race realism. From what I understand, race realism is it's looking at the differences between the races and understanding that they're a natural part of the world and that racism is an okay thing to have. I think some people are fine with racism when they say race realism, because that's a huge chunk of what it is. A lot of the people who claim to be race realists think that white people are the greatest thing that happened, and civilization can't exist without white people. I mean, literally, they believe, the arts, the literatures, they're all come from white culture, and you need that in order to have a civilization. Japanese people, I don't know, Chinese people, whatever, so I guess, again, from what I understand, that's what they believe, that there are differences between the races, and it's fine to, call them out. But a lot of the times it's often the negative attributes of different races that are focused on. So it just looks like legitimate, plain old racism. And when I say legitimate racism, because I have to say that now, I mean believing one race is superior than the other. Because a lot of people use the word racism, as someone pointing out a difference between two races. If you say black people are faster than white people, it'll be, oh, that's racist. Well, I mean, it's not accurate. It's not entirely true. I mean, there's some truth in that, but you're not saying that one race is better than the other. You're just pointing out a difference between them. So, but a lot of people would perceive that as racism, and that's not what the word means. But race realism would be truly racism, in that I think white people are better, because they've created this civilization I live in, so that's as far as I understand it. Yeah, I could be wrong there, by the way. If I'm wrong, I'll accept that. But from what I've gathered from the people who claim to be race realists and their rhetoric, they're usually white nationalists. I don't really know very many black nationalists that have, I don't know any black nationalist that's ever referred to himself as a race realist.
So there's recently been a lot of media coverage of race realist and a Euro identitarian, Richard Spencer. Now, what do you think of his particular brand of race realism and white nationalism?
I'd have to do more research on it. I unfortunately cannot speak on that. I remember watching a few of his videos sometime last year, like sometime way back ago, and I knew he was the one who coined the phrase alternative right. But when I watched his videos a long time ago, he didn't really strike me as a white nationalist or anything like that. It does look like it's something that developed over time for him. However, how he is now, all the other stuff I can't speak on, unfortunately. I don't have enough.
So, yeah, and that's totally fine. So you did mention that you were looking into him early on, and you are familiar with him to some degree. So what is the alt-right exactly? Because I think most of us have been pretty misinformed about what it is and what it sets out to accomplish.
Oh, a lot of people are confused about the alt-right. The alt-right originally, I have to say this because it has morphed into probably what you think of it now, but originally the alt-right, even according to Richard Spencer, was simply, we're people on the right wing. We just don't like the current conservative establishment that's representing us. We still believe all the same things, the right wing believes, but we don't like these people who are in power because they don't represent us the way we want them to. They're still right wingers. They're the alternative right. That's what it meant. In the same way rock music, you have alternative rock. It's still rock music. It's just, it has a different sound, has a different flavor to it, a different interpretation. That's how the alternative right was. How it developed, though, over time was it became a safe haven for a bunch of white nationalists, and it eventually became to morph into one and the same thing. Because originally, like I said, it wasn't originally all about white nationalism and white pride and race realism. It was about being on the right wing, but we don't like the people who represent us. It was a very simple concept, at least to me. Over time, it developed into, this amorphous blob you see now about white nationalists and race realism and all of that. But that's not how it started. It seems like, I can't really prove it, but it seems more like white nationalists infiltrated the alt-right because they felt safer there. They felt like they could talk about those controversial things people wouldn't talk about in the mainstream, and it just built up over time, and now they've taken it over. I think even Paul Joseph Watson on Twitter, maybe a couple months ago, decided to come up with new right to separate himself from the alternative right because it has fallen into, the darkness that is white nationalism. So, from my understanding, that's what it is. So what it was. So.
Oh, I apologize. Do you think it's become a real driving force in the new political arena?
No, And the reason why I think it gets ratings and it gets attention, do I think that white nationalism will ever be a powerful force? Not in the near future, considering how deathly afraid white people are of being even thought of as racist. I mean, you throw the word racist at a lot of normal white people, and they get scared. They won't even, they say the N word. They won't even, they tiptoe around the feelings of minorities. They start now using people of color to be more liberal and sound like they're safe and everything, which even then, that term confuses the hell out of me. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm talking about that later. But no, I see a lot of white people, they're just scared of being thought of as racist. So do I think the white nationalists will ever gain a bunch of political power? No, I'm honestly not afraid of them. I find them to be annoying, to be honest. They take a lot of attention away from things we could be focusing on. And that's really all they do. Do I think widestream America will ever, fall into this? Not at all. White people are scared to be considered racist. White people are afraid of being considered racist. So no, I don't. I think this is just a small group of people that will probably fade out over time. At least the people stop giving them attention, because that's all they seem to be doing, just get a bunch of attention. I mean, are they actually changing a bunch of minds? I don't think so. I think they just annoy people. So.
So a common term we've heard a lot lately, next to, I think, Nazi, neo-Nazi, and literally Hitler, is fascist. Now, what exactly is a fascist?
A fascist, maybe we might have to just go to Google to get a good concrete definition. But from what I understand, layman's term, it's basically a dictator or someone that seeks to have complete control over the government or complete control over what people do. So someone that seeks to control what you read, what you think, how you feel, with the usage of force is certainly, I think, would be considered as fascism. I think it's safe to say that without fancy words from the dictionary.
Yeah, so I think it would be safe to say that fascism is neither uniquely left or right, even though I think it's mostly tossed out against the right. But another word we've heard a lot is Nazi. Do you think that the overuse and the proliferation of this word has made it lose meaning?
I think it will. I don't think it has yet, because people keep using it. But I think eventually Nazi will become cliche, because the way people use Nazi, they don't use it as a national socialist. That's what it means, to describe Hitler's party. They use it as a catch-all for this person is incredibly evil. And the interesting thing is, the evil that the Nazis portrayed wasn't that cut and dry. And that might sound controversial, but it's not. A lot of the Nazis were people who believed they were doing something right. That's the nature of evil. That's the craziness of evil. A lot of people will do extreme things believing that they're correct in their purpose, But they use the term Nazi as this scheming, conniving person that just does wrong to do wrong. No, that's not how the Nazis were. They committed atrocious things believing they were right. Again, so evil is a bit more complex than the Hydra that they see. Like they treat it like Captain America's Hydra. Like they're just this evil cabal just trying to seek and control the world. It's not that simple, and so that's just how they use the word Nazi. They just use it for this person is evil and terrible and I hate them. That's what they use it for. And I don't think they should, because it's not entirely accurate. That's not the correct evil the Nazis were. But will it lose all meaning eventually? Yeah, certainly. It will eventually become very cliche, because people keep throwing it out there to describe, like, people like Donald Trump. Like, I mean, literally Hitler. It's one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard in my life, calling Donald Trump literally Hitler. First of all, he's not Hitler. Done. He's not literally Hitler. Done. The end of that conversation. No, but seriously, there's nothing about Donald Trump that's even remotely close to being Hitler. First of all, if you want to compare Donald Trump to Hitler, you'd have to say, one, Donald Trump would have to be a hero in the eyes of most of his country. He's not. Hitler was considered a hero to Germany. He helped Germany. He saved them, from economic collapse. Until Donald Trump has done that, he's not even close to being literally Hitler. So no, half the country hates Donald Trump. No, this man's not literally Hitler. They're just trying to take an idea of evil and splatter it on to Donald Trump to make you believe he's evil. And it's like, well, no, that's ridiculousness. And then that actually goes back to our earlier part of this conversation about individualism. You know, until Donald Trump individually shows you his skills as a president, you can't then go back 40. Like, how many years ago was World War II? I can do some quick math. Whatever, 50 plus years ago. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is, you know, they're trying to use some other person in the past to try to smear Donald Trump. And I don't think it's reasonable or it makes sense to do so. I mean, I know what they're doing and I can see through their ploy, but hopefully other people will begin to wake up soon enough and see that they're trying to associate, they do this a lot, actually. A lot of feminists and social justice warriors try to associate your negative feelings with one thing with the other. And what they never realize is that that can completely backfire and make you think less of it. Like, if you think that Donald Trump is evil and terrible and is, if you think Donald Trump is like Hitler, but you don't think Donald Trump is a bad person, then that could backfire. And then you'd be like, well, Hitler is not a bad person. If Donald Trump is like Hitler and Donald Trump's okay, then that means Hitler's okay. They never realize it could backfire. And you can actually end up taking something that was serious and watering it down. So I guess to answer the original question, do I think the term Nazi will become cliche? Yeah, I think it will be very soon.
So when there's this oversimplification of history and these words become platitudinous and these names and labels become useless and meaningless, what ramifications do you think that will hold for the future?
Well, for starters, I think a lot of people will lose history is very important because it teaches you what not to do. And a lot of people don't realize that's what history class is for. It's about learning how you got from one place and learning what not to do and how not to be. You know, that's even in your personal life. You know, if you trip over a basket in the hallway, you know, that's history. You know, you just learn, oh, the basket's there, even though it was 5 minutes ago. What are you not going to do? Trip over the basket. That's the whole point of history. It's to teach you, you know, there were some mistakes in the past. Now we're going to learn, you know, we're going to take this wisdom and do something better. You know, when you water it down and you make it really simple, you radicalize a lot of people. You scare a lot of people. You know, a lot of people, again, they're thinking, you know, the camps are going to come. I don't even know what they think Donald Trump's going to do, who Donald Trump's going to round up into death camps or anything. But you scare a bunch of people and they don't think rationally. They don't think correctly about the world. So they end up saying stupid things and doing stupid things. You know, they end up marching down Washington, you know, talking about, you know, abortions and their periods. And they just sound ridiculous. You know, the whole Women's March thing, they're sitting there talking about free control over their bodies, free access to birth control and all that. And it's like, well, you know, you have a job, you have money, just go buy it. You know, they try to create this fictionalized, you know, history that's already, I mean, there's a lot of horrible stuff in history as it is, but they try to make it sound even worse to scare people into doing and saying stupid things that just don't make any sense. And I think the ramifications of the simplifying history and giving people a false sense of how the world was and how it works is just going to make people make dumber decisions. It's going to make people think that they have to do things they don't have to do. You know, I'm pretty sure a lot of the feminists think that they're right. I imagine they have to. I don't think that in their minds they think, oh, I'm wrong about feminism, but I'm just going to keep being belligerent because, you know, screw everyone else. I don't think most of them think like that. I think in their hearts and their minds, they think they're on the, they say it all the time, they're on the right side of history because they think that they're all liberal and kind and whatnot, never realizing they were spoon-fed a bunch of bull crap, and they're making terrible decisions that aren't helping anybody, you know, because their whole perception of reality is wrong because they were given wrong information. They were told wrong things. And I think that's a huge problem that will happen. That's already happening, but will continue to happen in the future.
So in this day and age, what is the function of feminism?
To complain about nothing. to whine and complain and be angry. I mean, that's all I can gather from it.
I saw some interesting signs from the Women's March the other day. One of them was, if I have to pay for my tampons, make them pay for their razors.
Which was the dumbest thing ever, because men do pay for their razors. Where do you think razors come from? That's what I mean when you say stupid things. But that's a perfect example of what I mean when you say stupid and wrong things. You know, I have to pay for my tampons. You have to pay for, well, I do pay for my razors, woman. What does that even mean? What is she even trying to say? I already pay for them. So what? See, it doesn't even make any sense. I think that's actually a perfect example.
Do you think it's things like that that delegitimize the movement?
Yeah, but I think the movement's been I don't think feminism had a leg to stand on from the beginning. I'll be completely honest. A lot of the history people are told and taught about feminism isn't accurate. A lot of the suffragettes were racist. They were not kind people. They were terrorists too. They weren't great people. They were pretty far from great. So I can't accept their racism at all. I can't accept their terrorism at all. And considering the fact that women could already vote and women were being able to vote in different states, and there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents women from voting, I don't think the 19th Amendment was even needed. Because again, like I said, I think there are like 15 states that already allowed women to vote before the 19th Amendment was ratified. So the states were already moving towards that as it was. I don't think that the marches were needed. I certainly don't think the sexual revolution and second wave feminism was needed. I think that just contributed to the destruction of our culture as a whole. But I'll probably have to do more research and make a full-blown video about that in the near future. But no, I don't think that there was a legitimate part of feminism.
Can you elaborate on the racism and the terrorism?
Well, I know that the suffragettes, like Susan B. Anthony, didn't believe that black people should be able to vote or black men should be able to vote before white women did. I know that for a fact. I think over in England, some of the suffragettes were setting off bombs and firecrackers in different places. Simple stuff like that. But the fact remains, terrorism is terrorism.
So they were like the Robert Ayers of the early 20th century?
Yeah. They were jerks, is what they were.
So we discussed the alt-right earlier. Is there an equivalent on the left?
If you want to consider no, I don't think there would be an alternative. I don't think there is an alt left. I don't know very many people on the left wing who complain about the people that represent them. They seem to like them quite a bit. They loved Hillary Clinton, so I don't know very many. They loved Bernie Sanders too. I don't think there is an alternative left. At least I haven't seen it. So no, I don't think so. I could look into it, but I've never heard of any alternative left.
Yeah, I ask mainly because I was listening to Cenk Uygur and Anita Sarkeesian's meltdown on election night, and they were saying, progressives, we have to stamp out the DNC. We have to stamp out the establishment on the left because they lied to us, they sold us out. Do you see any sentiments like that growing on the left, or is it just going to fizzle out with the first year of Trump's presidency?
My personal feeling, there's no facts, it's just conjecture. I think it'll fizzle out. I don't think they will hold on to that very long because, well, they haven't in the past. Again, they're pretty happy with most people who say that they believe what they believe getting into power. So no, I don't think they'll be consistent. I could be wrong, but that's just my personal feelings.
And earlier you mentioned the term people of color, confusing the hell out of you. What exactly do you mean?
Well, I've noticed that term has resurged in the recent years, and colored people, at least growing up when I was talking about the civil rights movement, being called a colored person, was an insult. It was a sign of disrespect. What confuses me is how you change the order of words around, put of in between them, and all of a sudden it's a respectful remark of different races. That makes no sense to me, because if I said you're a person of poop, I still insulted you. If I said you have a head of poop, it's still poopy head. It's still an insult. So I don't understand how flipping the word order around all of a sudden changed it to a respectful term. It's like, no, it's stupid. It's dumb. Either saying you're a colored person is an insult or it's not. But you don't change the words around it, and all of a sudden, no, I'm just referring to, minorities are just different. Then why don't you why don't you just say minorities then? Why don't you just say that? Why don't you say people of color? Because again, I was taught that was an insult. That during the civil rights movement, that was disrespectful to minorities and to black people. So I don't see how now you could take a term that was supposed to be disrespectful, flip it around and be like, no, I just changed the words. No, it's okay. It's like, well, no, either it's wrong or it's not. No.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's going on with that really, because Cenk Uygur was citing a statistic and culture debate, and the statistic he was citing was like by 2051 or something, whites will be a minority in the U.S. and people applauded. So do you think it's trying to set up for already being the majority, or at least being in a plurality with white people, or what exactly is going into this?
I don't know if it's a setup. That's an interesting way of looking at things. I think you'd have to tell me about if you think it's a setup, because that's an interesting thought. What is it leading up to? I don't know. I can't tell you. I can tell you it confuses me. I can tell you it makes no sense. Why they decided to adopt that term now, I don't know. I can't tell you.
Well, personally, the terms that they've used to defend being a racist against white people is, well, they're the majority, they're the ones in power. Even though our past president and attorney general and multiple members of Congress were black, they're the ones oppressing everybody because they're the majority. But I think once white people are no longer the majority, things aren't going to change. It's just going to embolden racists to go even further and do things like punch Richard Spencer out, or not even punch him out, just sucker punch him and run away, and be excused for it because, well, they're the evil ones.
Well, I don't think that would work anymore. I think if the power to be belligerent and rude comes from the fact that you're impoverished or you have no power, you have no political power, if you obtain that power, then you'd just be a bully. You'd just be a fascist. And I don't think even people who like the virtue signal could side with that. So if black people say did become a majority and did have majority of power, I don't think they could continue to be mean and cruel to white people, because then they would have become the very people they sought to destroy. And you'd have to have some amazing levels of doublethink to reach that point and still say, rioting in the streets is you raging against the machine. I don't see how even the dumbest person could have that much political power and still say, no, we're willing in our rights, beating up white people. It's totally fine. The dumbest person couldn't do it in that climate. You'd have to be beyond just a hypocrite. It just wouldn't even make any sense at that point. A huge portion of their power, or what even allows them to feel justified in beating up white people or saying mean things about white people, is the fact that they are a minority. So if you take that shield away from them, well, what do you have? Nothing. No. Well, I don't think becoming a majority would embolden them. I think at that point they'd have no choice but to settle down. Otherwise, white people would be the ones who have to have the civil rights.
Well, I asked that, or I posed that sort of scenario because I've heard some alarming things coming out of South Africa, and namely the white farmers having their land taken away from the black government or black-run government. So even though whites are, fairly in the minority there, the push against them is still there, and I think it's because of an appeal to history, like we're seeing, or like we saw with the BLM kidnapping or hashtag BLM kidnapping. A lot of what I saw was the justification of this barbaric act by saying, well, look at slavery. Explain that one to me, and then I'll concede this.
Okay, well, first of all, you could say, well, it was other Africans that sold Africans to those white settlers. That's the end of that conversation right there. You wouldn't have had African slaves if African tribes weren't fighting and warring with each other. So, I mean, Yeah, being upset about slavery now, especially when slavery still continues, to me is a gigantic waste of time. Um, it happened. It's bad, but we're not going to get better if we keep being upset about it. Again, like the thing about history is learning to not repeat it. The thing about history is learning to become better. And I think people completely miss that when you just sit around and be angry and mope about what has happened. The point is to be a better person, not to be angry all the time. So I think they've missed that part about history class. And they're just using it as a shield to be angry and bully people.
So do you think we're doomed to just keep repeating this cycle of, you know, going from one extreme to the next?
Yes and no. No, I say yes because it's consistent. It does, the pendulum does keep swinging. But I still say no because I think we humans have free will. We have the ability to choose for ourselves and to think complexly. And I think it's just enough people have to get that nudge to say, let's stop and evaluate the world. Let's stop being polarized. I think it's possible. Do I think it's likely? Not entirely, but I still have hope.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you're optimistic. Now, so a common theme on your channel is fairness. And in this fairness, you defended the infamous Onision because he was, you know, being portrayed unfairly. I think we can both, you know, agree on that. Now, I think your defense of him exposed some biases within the skeptic community that were just willing to fly off the handle with slandering him. So can you go into depth for us?
Oh, there's an echo. In your microphone, I can hear myself.
Oh shit. How about now?
Let me see. Okay, you're good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, there's no more echo. The echo's gone. So what happened with Onision was I saw a bunch of people calling him creepy and slandering him and calling him a pedophile because he had a forum where a couple of I say literally a couple. I've only confirmed 2 13-year-old girls posted on the forum, but the vast majority of the women that posted on his forum were adult women. And I find it interesting, at least to me, how a lot of people zeroed in and focused on the fact that he was judging a bunch of 13-year-old girls when, one, it wasn't 13-year-old girls, but second, no one has any problem with Instagram. No one complains about literally like I just random 40% of Instagram is just a bunch of women posting pictures of themselves and trying to look attractive. The other 60% is food and maybe family gatherings. So you have a gigantic portion of Instagram just filled with women doing the same exact thing they're doing on Onision's forum, looking for attention, and no one's calling them out. No one's saying that that's wrong. And the only way you could have any problem with it, or Onision doing it, is if you zero in on the fact that these are young underage girls, and that's what they did. But it wasn't accurate. It wasn't fair. It wasn't mostly 13. It was only confirmed to be 2. There's only 2 13-year-old girls. So how could you be upset with his entire forum? And even then, the pictures of themselves of the girls were fairly tame. They weren't sexualized pictures. They weren't showing their cleavage or anything. They were just asking Onision if they were normal. And the reason why they were asking Onision if they were normal was because no one in their life had ever given them that affirmation. Their father didn't say it, their brother, no male figure. No one gave that to them. So they're attention whoring on the internet because no one in their personal life gave them the nudge that they needed. So instead of being upset with Onision, maybe you should look at why are these girls doing this in the first place? But no one wanted to do that. They just jumped straight down Onision's throat, called him a bunch of mean names. And then again, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things to criticize Onision for, but I don't think this is one of them. I mean, do I think that Onision's forum of getting a bunch of pictures and saying mean or sometimes nice things about the girl is good? Not really. I don't think that's conducive to anything. However, is he a pedophile? No. I don't think that's a fair thing to say to call someone pedophilic or to say that they're nasty because there's no evidence that he's even attracted to children. And even then, pedophile means you're attracted to prepubescent children, not to teenage girls. And there's no evidence that he is. Some people would say that he dated his wife when she was 17, and I don't think he should have. I'll be completely honest. However, she stayed with him. I can't. I don't think he should. I wouldn't date a 17-year-old girl. Um, However, I mean, if that's the legal age of consent, if that was fine, if she stayed with the man and had his child, I mean, it is what it is now. I mean, she's legal age now. So honing in on the fact that he dated a 17-year-old, I don't know. It's just they're just trying to make him look like a terrible person, and you don't need to do that to make him look like a terrible person. The fact that he's egotistical and feels the need to share his personal life with millions of people on the internet is one thing you can slam him for. The fact that he thinks he's right when he's clearly wrong is another. To zone in on this and call him a pedophile, I think people just wanted to hate on him some more. And again, I think there's lots of reasonable criticism of Onision, but to call him a pedophile when there's no evidence that he is, I don't think that's right. I don't think you should be able to do that to people, like him or not. And I don't like Onision. So that's how I felt about it.
So earlier you mentioned the destruction of our culture. I think it was through abortion or something. I can't remember.
I said the sexual revolution certainly helped to destroy
there we
culture.
go. So you seem to stress family values. Is that wrong on my end to assert that, or?
No, I mean, certainly I do. I think families are great. I think fathers need to be with their children. Mothers need to be with their children. I don't find anything wrong or confusing. I don't think even that's a revolutionary statement to make, that families should stay together and love each other and parents should raise their children. What is so mystical about that statement? I mean, if I say you drink water, you're not like, wow, that's totally amazing, right? And if I said you breathe air, you wouldn't be like, thank you for telling me. No, you'd be like, yeah, of course. So when I say that fathers should raise their children, mothers should love their children, people are like, whoa, that's traditional. Well, what's wrong with it? You drink water, you breathe air, fathers should raise their children. Mothers should love their mothers should be with their children. I personally don't find what's revolutionary about that statement or about feeling that families should be together.
Do you think that stray away in recent decades from the traditional family is what's been correlating with our decline, or what are we looking at here exactly with the welfare state increasing as our GDP is generally not keeping up with that?
I think that's part of it. One of the biggest indicators of failure in a child's life is the lack of a father figure. They're more likely to be depressed. They're more likely to go rob and break the law. They're more likely to be rebellious. And, having a father is a huge indicator of success in a child's life. Consistently, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I did a hangout with a couple of my friends a few weeks ago where we read just a long line of different statistics about how having a father, changes the destiny of a child. A good father, obviously. Some people might say, well, if the father's abusive. Well, I think that kind of goes without saying. An abusive parent is bad. So I think we can all assume when I say having a father, I mean a good father, one that loves his children and tries to protect them. So that's very important, So when you remove that and, you have a bunch of women that try to raise their kids on their own and be single parents, they miss out on the critical things that they get. I mean, for both sides too. Even if you have single fathers, a child still misses out on the love that they get from their mother and the lessons they can get from her. So I think, a traditional family unit is a great thing. I don't find anything wrong with trying to be together and raise your children.
So with this idea that the single mother can do it on her own, when I think you were alluding to the statistics showing that it's not working out all that well. Do you think this push for equality has gone too far? Do you think it's already accomplished what it needed to under the law?
Yeah. I think it's gone way too. I don't think people are fighting for equality at all anymore. Now it just seems they're fighting for special privileges and just the right to complain about nothing. Because even the interesting thing about traditionalism, which a lot of people seem to miss, was the fact that men and women were supposed to be beholden to each other. A lot of people look at arranged marriages, in the past, where as a problem for women. This woman was arranged to be married to this man. Well, let's think about that one for a second. Who is the man arranged to be married to? Well, the woman. So that means that you had a man and a woman. Both of them have to deal with being arranged to be married, and both of them had a responsibility to each other. Was that the perfect thing? Was that great? No, I don't think so. However, the fact remains, men and women were responsible to each other. They did different things. They had different roles, but they were responsible to each other, and that is equality. That men have to do something for women, and women have to do something for men. That is equal. It's not the same. A ton of bricks is not the same as a ton of feathers, but they weigh the same. They're equal. It's just so men and women have to do different things for each other, and I think that I don't find anything wrong with it. I mean, do I think it can be abused? Well, certainly anything can be abused. Too much of anything is a bad thing. So there could be an imbalance from the man or the woman's side, certainly. However, the fact is, in traditionalism, or thinking about the way marriages were, how they worked, men and women had responsibilities to each other. They belonged to each other. The woman wasn't the man's property. The man wasn't the woman's property. They were each other's responsibility, and they were supposed to take care of each other. So it was equal. So fighting for equality, women trying to be like men, trying to take the roles. First of all, the interesting thing is a lot of women don't even like being treated like men. So as to why they're fighting to be, they just want all the great things they find about being a man. They don't want any of the responsibility that comes with it. So it's not even equality. They just want power, and I don't think it should even be catered to. But people do.
Did we lose you?
That's that.
Oh,
I'm still here. I was just done talking.
Oh, okay. So there's been in academia especially, there's been a lot of talk about social constructs. Now, can you give us like a quick layman's definition of what a social construct is?
Something that doesn't occur naturally, that society came up with in order to define different terms. I believe that's what they mean when they say social construct.
And it's kind of been given a really negative connotation. Anytime I hear social construct, it's usually not the best light that they're trying to portray on something. Now, do you think that some social constructs bear a lot of weight that is useful to humanity, or are they all just bunk?
Well, we're talking to each other, right?
Yes.
We're having language is a social construct. I think the question answers itself. I mean, being socially constructed doesn't mean. I understand exactly what you're saying. There is a negative connotation to that word, a huge one, but I think it's foolish and misguided because, again, like I said, language is a social construct. We communicate with each other. We talk. I mean, music is a social construct. There's a lot of beautiful music, right? Art is a social construct. There's a lot of things that are social constructs that are socially constructed. Look at the painting. Look at what you have: 1, 2, 3 paintings. Those are all social constructs. On your wall, there's actually 5. Yeah, you moved your head. There's 5 paintings.
It's actually on the wall, but yeah.
No, there's more. There's more. But that's a social construct. And they all say different things. They all mean different things. They're all interesting. So I mean, I don't think it's right to be upset with something being socially constructed. I think it has meaning in and of itself. Well, depending on what it is, we'd have to analyze it. But when we're talking about art, music, language, those are great tools. We need them. So, no, I don't think it's fair to have a negative connotation to a social construct. I think that's foolish.
Yeah. Now, recently, I guess one of the greatest conspiracy theories that I've ever heard is the patriarchy theory.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it great. It's certainly persistent.
I just think it's awesome. It amazes me. Like
that the entire world is created for the benefit of men. See, that's something that's interesting to me because growing up in life, I have never once experienced that. I have seen men, I have had friends dog me out to get to women. So I have seen men dog other men out to get to women. If anything, you wouldn't call it a matriarchy. There might be a different word, maybe a gynocracy. A lot of people refer to this as gynocentrism, or like if you talk to MGTOWs, you would, that there is a preference to treat women better than men. I have seen that throughout the course of my entire life. Most men, again, like I said, and maybe it might just be to use women and just sleep with them or not. But I mean, again, I've seen men dog other men out to get to a woman, to have sex with them, to put the woman over their friendships. And it does happen both ways. I have seen it with women too. That does happen, but do I think that men just link up with each other, by the power of testosterone and just love each other and just, pick each other? No, I don't think so. That's not the reality I've seen. I have seen men prioritize women's wants far beyond men's wants, consistently. So I don't think patriarchy has any weight in the actual world. If you try to take what they say about patriarchy and apply it to what we see in the world and how our culture treats women, it's just not. I mean, think about the Women's March that just happened, earlier this week. You're telling me that we live in a patriarchy, a world that benefits men and doesn't care at the expense of women, doesn't care about women. Well, then why are we having a march where all we do is talk and celebrate the nature of just being a woman? Not women doing anything, just existing. Why would we do that if we hate women? It doesn't even make any sense. Why would there be any government allocation of any resources to do anything to help women if the government just hates women? It doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone take heed to try to protect and keep women safe if we all hated them? It doesn't make any sense. So I don't think you could apply patriarchy into the real world in any scenario.
Well, what I found strangest about the Women's March is I asked a few people what they thought of it, and it was, well, they're changing things for the better because they're terrified of what Donald Trump will do to them because he's so evil. And I had two qualifiers there. It was, one, if he's so evil, why in the hell would you think that he's going to listen to this? And two, if you're so afraid of him, then why are you showing your face out in public and marching against him? Those two things just don't make sense. It's kind of like the first wave feminist movement, where they're like, well, they had to band together to create a voice. Well, if they were so suppressed, then how did they do it in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
why would anyone listen or care if they hate women so much?
Yeah, just these simple questions, and it takes quite a few mental gymnastics to get through it, really, to kind of explain it, I guess. Now, recently, I saw that the women in the draft might be coming to legislation sometime in the near future. Now, what exactly are your thoughts on this, if it were to ever come to fruition?
Well, I have two thoughts. One, the draft would probably disappear probably in the next 5 years. If women were forced to be drafted, I don't think anyone would stand for that. People like women and love women way too much to even think about them, taking their rights away and not letting them get their licenses because they decided not to sign up for the draft. I mean, I don't think a lot of people would take that sitting down. I think the draft would go away, or we would be severely. Well, we haven't been drafted, so I'm not really worried about being drafted for war anytime soon. Not since Donald Trump decided to try to work things out with Russia. However, do I think women being drafted is a good idea? Not really. Do I think women being in combat is a good idea? Not really. No. However, that being said, I think, considering a lot of feminists like to talk about voting rights, considering that they love to bring up the suffragettes, women having to be signed up for the draft would be a long time coming. It would be 90 years coming, considering that men had to do that for years. So there were men who got drafted without the right to vote. No, men were getting drafted before they even had the right to vote, or lower economically living men. So I mean, being drafted was just something men had to deal with. That was your responsibility to defend your country. Considering that you have to be signed up for the draft in order to vote and get your driver's license, well, I mean, women have been out of that for years. If you really want equality so much, you would have no choice but to give women the draft. That said, I don't think a lot of people would take that sitting down. I think they'd probably just remove the draft altogether, or it would severely weaken the military if they had a draft and they decided to pull women out. So that's my thoughts on that.
Do you think there would be a feminist conundrum at that point? Like they would have to decide?
Well, I think there already is. I think if you brought the issue up to a feminist, I think you'd melt her mind on the spot. Because she'd have no choice but to say, yeah, women have to sign up for the draft. There was an article once, someone showed me a headline of this feminist saying the draft is not a form of equality, and I just laughed. I didn't even read the article. I just laughed and kept going about my day because I just knew it'd be filled with a bunch of double think and rhetoric that just wouldn't even make any sense. As a feminist, you'd have no choice but to accept that responsibility, and a lot of women don't want to, and I understand why they don't want to, because the thought of having your entire life halt to go fight in a war you don't want to participate in or do something in the military you don't want to do sucks. I can understand why a woman wouldn't want to be drafted. I don't want to be drafted. I get that. However, if you want to be consistent with your principles, you'd have no choice but to accept that. That's my thoughts on that.
So I remember you making a video about Ariana Grande and
yeah, that's pretty recent.
Objectification.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does that double standard work?
Well, I don't know if it's a double standard, but it's certainly double think. Well, yeah, I think you could put it as a double standard because I don't see very many women objecting to sexy men in advertisements. I don't see a lot of women complaining about, or even men for that matter, complaining about seeing men with six-pack abs and big pectoralis muscles. No one really complains about men being sexual, or no one really complains about the fact that women value a man's utility more over him as a person. That's not a criticism. However, you'll find a bunch of women, you weren't even feminists, but feminists too, complaining about sexual objectification, using women's bodies to sell products, or using women's body, or talking about pornography or modeling and whatnot, which is interesting because again, those are all fields women profit from. Like these women chose to become models. These women chose to show their bodies off in a sexy way. So you're complaining about what these women wanted to do. So the double standard in that scenario is, on the one hand, you think it's empowering to be sexy and show yourself off. On the other hand, you think it's disempowering because it's used to sell a product or it's used to gratify men. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just a clear example of doublethink. However, with Ariana Grande in particular, though, what was interesting was the fact that she said let me see if I'm trying to remember what she said verbatim. Well, the basic gist was she didn't like the fact that the guy only referred to her as her boyfriend was hitting that or just having sex with her. She was like, I'm just not something to have sex with. And I'm like, you know what? I can understand the guy's comment was rude because it was untoward. There's no way around that. However, considering that's how she makes her money, the fact that she's showing her butt cheeks on stage, the fact that she tries to look sexy in her videos, the fact that she writes songs that are explicitly about her having sex, I don't think she has a leg to stand on to complain when someone only views her in a sexual way. That's the only thing she's shown us. She's only shown us that she wants to have sex. So why would I think differently about that? And that's something a lot of women have not seemed to grasp. If you only show me that you want to have sex and that you're sexy and you're trying to broadcast your sex appeal, what other idea of you have you left for me to have? I'd have to imagine something that may or may not be true. But what I know is true is that you want sex. So that's what I'm going to think. And they haven't seemed to grasp that concept yet.
Yeah, so we are running out of time, but do you have any closing statements to make?
I guess my closing statements would be, I'm really glad that you wanted to have this hangout and talk to me. I find it interesting having interviews and sharing my ideas with people. I hope they get something out of it and they learn something. I'm not incredibly knowledgeable on everything, or I'm not up to date on everything I'd like, but hopefully you guys have gotten something out of what I've said or found this to be interesting or entertaining in some way. And thank you for listening to me. I do appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Zers. That is BassFZz, lowercase z on YouTube and Twitter. I'm Isaac Yepes with the UTEP College Republicans, and make sure you pay for your razors because we got to stop getting those for free.